You want me? You want it? Adam. It's the 12th of March, we've got a few weeks left of the female season, so this afternoon we're going to go out and try and find some roe does ideally, but we've got really strong winds. We've got 40-45 mile an hour gusts. Hopefully they're going to start to die down as the afternoon goes on. So we're going to look on some fields to start with, try and find some roe laid out in the fields if there are any laid out in there, or they might be just sheltered up against the hedgerows. We might have to pull back to the woods later on if we don't find anything out and about, but yeah, finish my tea and we'll go and have a look. So it's a real busy time for the farm on the estate at the moment. Just driving past this field of carrots which have been sown under plastic, which acts as a bit of a greenhouse for them. Just means they can get an earlier crop of carrots. But on the cereal fields there's a lot of fertiliser going on. Now it's dried enough so they can get on there. The sprayers will be out working on the fields as well, so quite often we'll turn up to a place, start stalking towards the deer that are laid out in the fields, and then all of a sudden you'll hear the sprayer coming along in the background, and then it's game over. But like I say, it's such a busy time for them, they can't really tell us exactly where they're going all the time, so it's a bit of a suck it and see this time of year. Just driving past one of the maize cover crops for the shoot. That's been flailed off now, and there's a fair bit of maize left on the floor which the birds didn't find in the winter, so these are sometimes good spots to come and look on to see a deer coming out feeding on those. A lot of them have still got to be cut yet though, because the farmer's so busy doing other things. So. Yeah, so we're just looking out over this cereal field. We've still got a maize cover crop in the distance that hasn't been cut, and then a hedgerow behind that. The wind's pretty much coming from over here straight onto us, so you'd expect the deer to be laying up in that maize cover crop or on this side of the hedge out of the wind. But it's also not impossible that you could look across this field and see a little group of roe sat out in the middle. It looks quite exposed from where we're sitting, but quite often there's little dips in the field, little pockets that are actually out of the wind, and that's where the deer will find and lay up. One thing we've got to bear in mind if we do get deer out in the middle of the fields with this sort of wind is trying to close the distance on them as much as possible, because anything over 100 metres you're going to have an element of wind drift on the bullet, so you've got to start thinking about aiming into the wind. Maybe an inch, maybe 2 or 3 inches, depending on how strong it is and how close you are to the deer. But we'll come across that bridge when we get to it. Yeah, so it's a really good vantage spot up here. We can see over quite a lot of the estate. There's quite a lot of cereal fields down in front of me here, but nothing obvious. So they're just going to be laid up against these hedgerows somewhere, but we'll keep looking around, see if we can find a little pocket in a field somewhere where they might be. Yeah, this wind isn't dying down at all, which is annoying, but we can only do what we can do. And just to top it off now, it's starting to rain. There's a little muntjac down here just on the edge of a wood, 700 metres away, so that one will be gone by the time we get down there anyway. We'll keep driving across. We'll just try and have a look from the top of another hill over here, and then we'll go and have a look just off the estate, looking back onto it, and then if there's nothing obvious we'll have to make a decision about where we're going. Quite a lot of water down here in the bottom. Obviously it's been a pretty wet winter, and that just filters down through the river system. There's some. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 laid up in the shelter of a hedgerow over here on this dark green field in the distance. We could approach them from sort of the bottom of the field up, but the problem we're going to have is we've got a road running along in the background. I just don't think we're going to get a safe shot on them, because coming up from the bottom of the field, they're going to basically be sat on a bit of a skyline there. So we'll have to forget about those ones. Sometimes a few down in front of us. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 in front of us. Sort of 2 fields over, there's the field in front of us runs down into a dip, then there's a cereal field going up the other side, and like a brown stubble field, and I can see 3 row there, just moving back into the shelter of a hedgerow again. I think one of them's a roebuck, I can see the antlers on it. We'll have to go and have a closer look, see what the other ones are. So we've got the 3006 today, because the 243 with those really light copper bullets in this wind is just going to get blown off course really easily. So we have done this stalk before. We've got like a road runs up behind you guys, and then we've got another road, a couple of fields over that way, and it sort of runs up into a point in the middle, so we have to be very specific on where we're shooting to get safe shots. But I think those deer, if you see in the far distance, you've got the stag-headed oak with the bare dead branches. You've got the big oak to the right hand side of that. They should be laid down somewhere around that. Still really breezy obviously, and it's coming this way, so we should be okay to head out around this field, which will be out of sight of the deer, and then come up the hedgerow, cross over this divide between the cereal field and the stubble field, and hopefully get onto them there. But the only problem we've got is when you've got really strong winds, as it hits like a hedge or a woodland edge, it can sometimes like swirl and twist up or down the hedges. So as we go along, we'll just have to keep checking the wind, see where it is. Otherwise we might have to change our plan. But let's give it a go. Yeah, so we've come around the edge of this field. We're down at the bottom now, so the deer should be up in front of us here. We've got a nice bit of cover with this bump in the field to get around to the next hedge, and then we can stalk up that, hopefully get into a position to have a good look and see what we're dealing with. We pretty much did this stalk footstep for footstep last April. I remember we shot a roebuck out in the next field over. So yeah, we've still got plenty of cover with this lump in front, but as we're coming along, that's starting to sort of shallow off a little bit now. So probably every sort of 5-10 paces I'll just stop, have a look with the binoculars, just make sure that we're not starting to walk straight out in full view of them. The other thing we've got to be careful of, we've got the deer in the next field up sheltering on the same orientation of hedgerow that we're approaching. So as we get along here to use that hedge to come up for cover, we just got to make sure we don't bump into something sat on the hedgerow sheltering from the wind like the others are above them. Yeah, so this hedgerow that I wanted to go up's clear, but there's like a little clump of thorns up in the corner here, and just using a thermal, because it's quite quick to look up a hedgerow, I spotted a roebuck just on the edge of these thorns, and we've got to get through those thorns or around the side of them to get onto the deer that we know are in the next field. so we're a bit stuck really. Even if he sits down, obviously we'll bump him at some point. I think the only thing we can do is we'll go back along the edge here and just try coming up across the field behind one of these big oak trees. Just use that for cover and hope from his perspective he doesn't see us if he's tucked in those thorns enough. Well, it didn't work. We came up there, I couldn't see the buck in this little corner, even the thermal, so I was sort of hoping it just laid down in a ditch or something, and then next thing you know, 5 row came running out into the field, obviously clocked us. They did stop for a second behind this big oak tree, and I thought we might get close enough to get a quick shot on one of them, but they haven't hung around, they've just gone straight across that stubble onto the next hedge. And they're getting too far up in terms of like where that road goes to a point, so we just can't shoot up there now. So I guess it was the ones that we saw parked up on the hill, they pulled into that hedgerow, and then obviously the time it took us to get round here to get onto them, they've pulled back down into this bottom corner, which is annoying, but we've got a bit of time, so we're going to have a quick look, see if we can find some more. Yeah, so we've driven around a couple of other places, we haven't seen anything. We're just going to have to roll the dice and have a bit of a gamble now. We've got these fields of stubble over here. There's a little bit of regrowth on them, so there's stuff for the deer to eat. But these are going to turn into solar panels. I think I've mentioned that before in the other videos. And they were doing all the archaeological survey on here until a few weeks ago. So I haven't really stalked here at all this winter. So I'm kind of hoping that there might be a few just in the corner here somewhere, just out of the wind on a hedgerow. So we'll just park up here and walk across the field and have a look. We might get lucky. Yeah, we've got some row down here, about 400 or 500 metres down on the sheltered side of the hedge, and just see one of their bums sticking out. Hoping there's going to be more there sat down. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see, but the deer that was out has just pushed back into the hedgerow a little bit, but if you follow these white markers down sort of 400 metres down, so 5 of those markers down on the right hand side, that's where they are. So we'll just cross back through, come down the right hand side of this hedge, and then we can come back out a little further down and see if there's any sign of them again. just see a glimmer of heat source. There's quite a lot of dead nettles and weeds down the edge there, and they're just sat in there. So we're not going to get a decent shot on them unless they come out into the field, or we could risk bumping them and hope that they stop and we could get a shot on them before they run off completely. But there's still another 250 metres down, so we'll keep edging down the right hand side and then crawl through the hedge a bit further down and then see what the situation is. Got a Chinese water deer come out about 80 metres away. Just see what it is, see if we can get a shot on it. And I'm pretty sure those roe are within the close area to that as well. I can see a deer in the thermal. It looks like a roebuck. It's only about 60 metres away. I can see another one behind it, but they're just all sat in this brash, so there's no clear shot on stuff anyway. Just get a little bit around this corner, just get to a good position and just wait for a few minutes. You on me? You on it? Adam! Yeah! Woo! One on the left. Yeah, so bit of a cock up there really. We got pretty close to this young roebuck. It was only about 60 metres away, and just as I came through the hedge there just to try and get set up to then wait and get a good shot on them, that one obviously clocked me and it came running out into the field with a roe doe. They did stop and I was sort of calling to Adam, like, are you on it, are you filming them, to, you know, for me to take the shot so you guys could see all the action. And he was saying yes in the background, but the wind was blowing so hard I couldn't hear him. So we missed a chance on those. They ran off straight across the field. And then luckily, just as we were having a bit of a heated debrief, the Chinese water deer that I'd seen before came back out of the hedge again. So just got a shot on that one about 100 metres. It's gone straight down, so we'll go and have a look. I think it's another buck. Yeah, but victory from the jaws of defeat. Good. So we've got a little Chinese water deer buck kid there. So this one was born last year, 2025. Yeah, Chinese water deer buck kid, little set of tusks. So yeah, nice. Fourth Chinese water deer we've shot on the estate, and lighted to drag across the field than the roe. Yeah, so there we go. Good result considering the weather circumstances. I don't think that wind's dropped at all. It's still 40-45 mile an hour winds. Luckily we were in the lee of that hedge, and it was 80 metres, 90 metres, so didn't need to worry about adjusting for wind drift. Annoying not to get those roe deer because that was a sort of target, but those Chinese water deer are, you know, just encroaching on the estate from the sort of dis end, which is, I suppose, sort of northeast of the estate. So yeah, we just got to take those when we get the chance, basically. So yeah, good to get that. we'll get it back to the larder and sort it out, and then we'll be back in a month's time. We'll be on the roebucks, so hopefully it'll be some nice spring weather. We'll see plenty of roe deer out in the fields, and we can have a look at the roebucks and talk about what we do with managing those.